Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
No, your clock isn't wrong. Your watch hasn't stopped. We are on 1 hour earlier here on this Monday, and there is a very good reason. The email came, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month back, an all-employee meeting at 3 o'clock. Don't be late. All right, so we're going to do the show earlier.
Fair enough.
Absolutely.
And we got plenty to talk about.
Absolutely. So, hey, you don't want to miss the meeting. And, of course, you never want to miss a Cards Cover 2 as we come to you here on this Monday from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. And with that, let's not waste any time. Let's take off and tell you what's ahead on the show. A lot concerning the 2019 NFL Draft. In particular, there are two types of leaders, ones who are vocal and ones who take the more quiet approach. Lead by example. Which one is Kyler Murray? And is Murray ready for such a role? Mr. Irrelevant wants to be relevant. We'll spotlight UCLA tight end Caleb Wilson. We've got your exclusive access inside the draft room, the latest episode of Flight Plan debuts this week. We've got a preview and, of course, your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2 using the number 2 to get involved in the show.
You know, I don't know how many days that Kyler Murray took off after the draft. Of course, you know, he was doing a lot of interviews. Obviously, I'm sure it was a little bit stressful from a standpoint just waiting for the phone to ring, and then everything has been, you know, cherry on the sundae. But he looks like he's starting to work out. He's been posting videos on Instagram, and the one he posted earlier today, maybe it was from yesterday, was him on the football field throwing the football wearing Cardinals gear. And if you're not familiar, Cardinals rookies will be in town on Thursday. They'll all get suited. They'll get their helmets, their pads, find out the lay of the land here, and they'll be on the practice field on Friday, which we're excited about. So over the next couple of days, we'll kind of gear you up to the rookie minicamp. All eyes will be on Kyler Murray. But again, the Cardinals did have 11 draft picks, and some people think the majority, if not all 11, can make the roster. Plus, they're going to have 12 guys they signed to undrafted free agent contracts. We're going to have some tryouts. So right now, the Cardinals have 98 players on the roster, so they're going to have some roster moves coming up in the next couple of days, if not when we get to Friday.
Yeah, rookie minicamp taking place later on in the week, going on as we speak, or at least on this Monday. Phase 2 continues of the offseason strength and conditioning program. This is week 2 of Phase 2. So, again, you can have offense versus defense, but, again, coaches are allowed on the field. I always get this confused. Coaches allowed on the field, but no offense, no defense, no live contact. And remember, this is all voluntary. But by the looks of the parking lot, and that's all we go on right now because there's no media availability, it is very well attended because it is very hard to get a parking spot, of course, here at the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. And if you want to see what Phase 2 looked like, you can go to azcardinals.com, a brand new photo gallery up by Darren Urban, who took some pictures earlier today. The team will be on the field Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, according to the schedule.
Yeah, and you can check out the gallery, as you mentioned, azcardinals.com. But every time they show some video, you know, obviously Kingsbury is an offensive-minded head coach. We know he's going to be the head coach and play caller, but it looks like a lot of time I'm sure he walks around practice, but a lot of time he's with the quarterbacks, and you could see that they're doing different drills based on the previous regimes. I know everyone's different when it comes to coaching and teaching, but, you know, he's out there and, you know, obviously working with Charles Kanoff and Brett Hundley and, you know.
Well, he's quarterback number 3.
It looks like it. He's throwing the ball. Again, if he's gonna throw it to you, better catch it because that's going to show up on film. You don't want that to happen. But just some of the drills we're seeing is a little bit different than previous, and not a surprise because he played the position, he's coached the position, and now he's obviously the play caller, and he's done that throughout his collegiate career as a head coach.
A couple of more quarterbacks will arrive later on this week. Of course, number 1 is QB1, Kyler Murray. Our first opportunity to see him on the field with his new teammates. That will come on Friday, and then the entire rookie class, along with those on tryouts and the undrafted rookie free agents, a 3-day minicamp beginning on Friday, lasting through the weekend. But we'll have more on that on Friday. But again, it is our first opportunity to see Murray in action. But this for this show, it's it's not so much what he does on the field, but how does he act? How does he interact with his teammates? How does he command the huddle? Because there is going to be a lot of eyeballs on him, a lot of pressure on him. And when you're the quarterback, you're the leader. That's just the natural part of it. Maybe not so much the entire team, but certainly of the offense. And players look to you when you're the quarterback. Doesn't matter who you are. First year in the league, 15th year in the league. When you have that QB distinction, you are the guy, and that is going to be Kyler Murray come Friday.
Yeah, just playing the nature of that position. Now, if you're a backup, the backup quarterback, you don't command as much, but he's going to be the leader. He's going to be the voice of the offense. And I remember when Matt Leinart lined up for either the rookie camp or maybe it was some of the OTAs, and obviously he was competing. You couldn't hear the cadence, and somebody said, "Speak up." I mean, and he played at a big-time school at USC, played in big games and a lot of good crowds. But you couldn't hear his cadence. And so little things, can you command the huddle? And that's the first thing we learned from the players when Josh got a chance to be in there. He was serious, but he was also joking a little bit, hey, let's go down there and score. And here they're looking at 3rd and 25, and he knew it was going to be difficult. So command the huddle, the respect, but playing that position, you command it, and he will be a leader once he steps on campus here.
He's been that guy in high school. He's been that guy in college. And now come Friday at the NFL level. Here is Murray talking about that last week with Paul Calvisi.
I don't think there's pressure with it. I think it's just coming in and being myself. Not trying to be anybody else. I can only be me and playing my game on the field. But, I'm not the type of guy to come in and try to demand everybody's respect. I'm going to have to earn it, obviously, by my play on the field. But at the same time, being a good guy, doing the right things on and off the field, and people will see how much I love the game, how much I want to win, and I think they'll respect that.
Now remember, immediately after the scouting combine and how much talk there was about Murray and leadership, and in this case, a lack of leadership. People started questioning him on whether he could actually be that guy at the NFL level. Now, a lot of stuff gets thrown out there, but Oklahoma head coach Lincoln Riley defended Murray's leadership, telling reporters after the scouting combine, quote, "He has no problem telling you his opinion, where he's at, what he thinks. For a coach, man, you want that. I do. It certainly helps," unquote.
Yeah, I don't know. And Charlie Casserly, I mean, he came around a little bit as the draft process. He was his number one quarterback. He thought he fits the Cardinals offense. So, I maybe teams were just saying that. Maybe he didn't interview well. He only had 15 minutes. Maybe he thought, there's no way I'm going to be at the board at number 13 or 15. So I don't know that. But to me, and Kingsbury's addressed it. He said he couldn't believe what he was hearing. I'm paraphrasing about Kyler Murray. He said, "That's not the person I know." So, again, you don't know if other teams were trying to put some stuff out there. Well, maybe the Cardinals would get cold feet. They never got cold feet, so they stuck to their conviction. They stuck to their due diligence, and they drafted him. So, yeah, I mean, everything you see, and, even when you see him throwing touchdown passes, he can run down to the end zone and get the ball. No, he's actually celebrating with his linemen. I mean, they're picking him up. Maybe it's a long play. So you could see, and before the draft, he had tweeted out, or in this case, put on Instagram, the 6 guys that played the most with him. And every single time he was in there, they were in his arms. He was high-fiving those guys as they're scoring points. So obviously you want to get along with your offensive linemen. They got to know what you're doing. But I think he's going to fit right in. He may lead by example, and maybe we're not going to hear the vocal part of him, but I'm sure when he gets on the field, the juices start coming out, and that's how competitive he is as a football player.
I think a lot of it is because of the quarterback that preceded him, Baker Mayfield. And all of a sudden, people were making comparisons. And right or wrong, they're just two different personalities. Mayfield was more in your face. You heard his voice, and Murray was a little bit more subdued. And we got a chance, at least my first interaction with him was at the scouting combine when he met the media, and he seemed very guarded, almost tense-like, and he didn't want to show too much. But then after the introductory press conference, he joined us here on Cards Cover 2 in studio, had a bright smile on his face, looked maybe more than anything else relieved and was relaxed. So I think what we saw, at least interviews, scouting combine, a lot of that, and that wasn't for show, but I think was someone who maybe had a little bit of a wall up because he wanted to make sure he was doing the right thing And now slowly but surely that wall might be coming down just a little bit because he is where he wants to be. He's the number 1 overall pick, and all that talk, all that dissection, debating, speculation, that's all gone.
Yeah, I mean, I like Baker Mayfield, and I could see how it would rub teams the wrong way, grabbing the crotch, going to midfield, and sticking the flag in. And that was the only time that Murray got a chance to play when Lincoln Riley suspended him. I don't know if it was the first quarter or the first possession. That was the only time he played that year. He doesn't come across as arrogant. Now, if you're in Cleveland, a blue-collar town, you gravitate to that kind of stuff. And, Baker Mayfield's his own person. Again, it's not for everyone, but I think from the quarterback position, you got to have a little bit of moxie and cockiness. I just don't see arrogance from Murray. Now, again, I don't.
It's confidence.
It's confidence, and he's been dreamt about this. His father's the one that showed him how to throw a baseball and a football at the age of 6 or 7. So, but I just don't see the arrogance like Mayfield. And you look at Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't seem it. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is a little got an ego and a little arrogance. Again, I think playing that position, you got to approach it different ways. You lead by example. We see guys that are very vocal on the sidelines, but again, I like Baker Mayfield. I like the way he approaches the game. He plays with passion. He's got energy. I think he would go through the wall for anyone. But I just don't see the arrogance in Kyler Murray since we've interviewed him and throughout the entire draft process.
One thing that the Cardinals did not draft was Baker Mayfield. They drafted Kyler Murray. Yes, they went to the same school, same position, but they are two different people. I think people are going to realize that the more you see Murray out in action and even out in public.
Yeah, you can make the case that maybe Mayfield's got a better arm and more accurate, but you look at Murray, he ran for 1,000 yards. I think Mayfield's last year he ran for 425. And Murray will tell you, I want to make decisions in the pocket. I will run when I need to, but I'm also going to try to extend plays with my legs, meaning if I'm still behind the line of scrimmage, I'm going to throw the ball. I'm not going to take the hit. And I do think because of his baseball background, he's going to be able to slide in the open field. He's going to be able to get out of bounds. You know how I talked about it last week, where when the Cardinals are in the red zone, whether it's at the 5, the 10-yard line, I think you get that bootleg going, and he should be able to go into the end zone by the pylon untouched. So you're right. They did not draft Baker Mayfield. They drafted Kyler Murray. But I think Murray's more of a dual athlete, a dual threat. Not saying Mayfield and Mahomes can't run, but he's the guy that can make plays, whether it's inside the pocket, outside, and he doesn't have to throw the football.
Adrian Wilson last week on the Big Red Rage with Paul Calvisi and Ron Wolfley talked about Murray growing into a leader.
Well, I think every player has to develop it. I think it's something that, especially at certain positions, I think guys, they have the ability to either address the team, address the group, or address an individual player. And I think that's something that, obviously he's going to have to grow into, but I think he has it in him. And I think, he's done it, over his time at Oklahoma. And, he's going to be our quarterback. He's going to be the guy, and, he's going to have that type of responsibility. And, he's going to have a good group around him, a good solid core around him. For the past 2 drafts, we've drafted a lot of guys that were team captains and guys that, they have the ability to lead. So it's not going to all be on his shoulders.
Lead by example. And we have a leader here on Cards Cover 2 who leads by example. Devin Henry putting up the description of one Adrian Wilson, the vice president of stuff. Yes. I honestly don't know what to call the man, except he wants to be referred to as Mr. Adrian Wilson, but he is officially a scout. The vice president of stuff was a nickname that he does not like. We'll keep calling him that until he sits here with us on Cards Cover 2 and tells us exactly how he would like to be referred to.
Right now it's scout. That could change, but he's a scout right now.
Put it this way, very well respected on the field,
yes,
and certainly off the field as well. And when A-Dub speaks about someone growing into their position, and even as a rookie, because as we mentioned, there is going to be a lot of eyeballs on him, but when you handle that football every single snap on offense, one, you have to know what you're doing, but you have to allow your teammates, you have to admit that as well, that everyone looks to you for guidance and where that offense, where we're going with it. They have to believe in you, and if you don't believe in yourself, well, then it's not going to work. But what's the one thing that Murray does is he believes in himself, and that's that borderline arrogant, cocky, but it's more of a confidence with him.
Yeah, and I think Adrian Wilson hit on it. I mean, it's going to happen. It may not happen overnight, though, but again, the nature of the position. And, for A-Dub, I mean, he was involved in the head coaching process. He was there for Murray's workout. He was there for Murray's visit, put him on the chalkboard. So it just seems like he can relate to a lot of these players. He's not too far removed. But I think it's a good sounding board to have him in the room, because if there's one thing we know about A-Dub, he's going to tell you how he feels. He's not trying to, he's not a yes man from a standpoint of, hey, listen, this is what I think, and I'm going to tell you, and you may not agree, but in due time, I think we'll see eye to eye on things. So I think it's good to have him in there. But for Murray, I'm sure he was, his record in high school is just remarkable. And what he did.
Never lost.
Yeah, never lost. And then in college. So he's been the guy since he's probably started playing football and baseball. And again, you don't get drafted in the first round just because of a name and you're, a two-sport athlete. You get drafted because they're projecting what you're going to do at the next level. And he's the only player in sports that he's been drafted in two different sports in the first round.
Look, I haven't seen him as far as talking about Kyler Murray, within a huddle or breaking down a huddle, so I don't think he's that big rah-rah guy or going to give you a big speech. But I don't think, in going back to what Lincoln Riley said about walking up to someone, whether it's a Larry Fitzgerald or a Christian Kirk, and saying, no, this is what I need you to do. Now, it's not, grabbing you by the jersey or the face mask. I don't think that's who he is.
No.
I don't think there's a lot of quarterbacks like that, but you have to stand up for yourself, especially if someone does something wrong offensively, or even to kind of motivate someone on offense or defense.
Or it's the approach. Hey, how about you run this route? What route were you running there so I can make sure that we're on the same page? Because, again, when it came to Kurt Warner, he threw to a spot. When he broke the huddle, he ID'd the Mike linebacker. In this offense, you may have to ID the safety because of some of the back not so much the back shoulder fades, but maybe rolling to your right and throwing backside. But again, it's going to be a learning curve. But I would think his approach is going to be, how are you running this route? Because I want to adapt to you. And the receiver will say, where do you want me to be? And all of a sudden now we can begin on the same page. But that's something that will work. They're all open to making sure that he's protected, running the right routes, because the last thing you want to do is throw to a spot. You expect a guy to be there, and at this level, the ball will get jumped. So I think it's going to be more of a feeling out process, and then obviously they go back and they watch their film from the practices, and that's where you can correct things. Maybe you're going a little bit deeper on that route. I want you to come back. So I think it's going to be more of a feeling out process. Get input from them, and then the other side can say, what do you want me to do? And they'll make sure they do that.
Another former player, Bertram Berry, our co-host on the Cardinals Red Sea Report. Last week when this topic was discussed, Berry brought up Peyton Manning. And remember, when Berry was with the Indianapolis Colts, he was with Peyton Manning during Manning's rookie season. And that was something that Berry noticed and brought up, because, like Peyton Manning, Kyler Murray is the number 1 overall pick coming to a brand new team.
It's always different when you talk about the quarterback position, because the rule of thumb for rookies is you're better seen and not heard. But when you look at a quarterback that's a rookie, you want him to be as confident and almost cocky to a degree. Not cocky to what he says, but cocky in how he carries himself, and the confidence knowing that when I get the ball in my hands, I'm going to make something happen. I don't want to see a guy turn the ball over a lot. I want you to make business decisions on the field. I want you to make business decisions as far as throwing the ball away. I want you to make business decisions as far as your health, because the one thing you can't have is a beat-up young quarterback. And if he is beat up and making bad decisions in year one, those things tend to linger a few years until you're able to ultimately get those out of your system and start playing good football.
And, of course, with good football comes wins, and that will obviously help out that voice, if you will, with Kyler Murray kind of getting a little bit louder as far as trying to motivate his team and say, hey, jump on my back, we'll take it, or I'll take you where we need to go.
And maybe that comes when we get to training camp. I don't know how much we're going to see from the offense in the preseason. Hopefully not very much, because you want to surprise teams at least that first month of the season. But there'll be a time and a place for it. And, you can see how jacked up he gets when he throws a touchdown, when he runs the ball and comes to the sideline. So, the excitement's there, and he wants to be great. And those are really good recipes if you're going to be a really good quarterback, regardless who you're drafted. You look at Troy Aikman. Now, he didn't even start the season. He ended up playing, I want to say, 9 games. I don't think he won a game. Peyton, they win 1 game that year, threw 28 touchdowns, 26 interceptions. I mean, we're talking about franchise quarterbacks, but it takes time. And then you look at Carson Palmer, he sat the first year. I mean, the ideal thing, I would think, and circumstances dictate this, what the Chiefs did. They had Alex Smith play
Correct.
for a year. They clinched a playoff spot. They put in Mahomes in Week 17, and then they trade Alex Smith in the offseason. Unfortunately, that was the plan last year with Bradford. It just didn't work out with Rosen, and obviously the lack of weapons and lack of execution from the coaching staff. But to me, and Peyton Manning and Bill Belichick say it all the time, the only way you're going to get better is by playing.
Absolutely, and we'll see what happens starting this weekend when Kyler Murray arrives here on Friday for the 3-day rookie minicamp. As we continue here on this Monday from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, broadcasting in our Bose QC35s. Go to Bose.com for more information to get your very own pair of headphones here that we use every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And, of course, if you ever miss a show here, you can always download as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, TuneIn, and now Spotify. And, of course, don't forget all of your favorite Cardinal podcasts can be found at azcardinals.com/podcasts. We continue looking back and profiling the 2019 Cardinals draft class. There were 3 picks in the 7th round so far. We've talked about 2 of them here on the show in depth. Morgan State offensive lineman Josh Miles and Temple defensive lineman Michael Dogby. Today we're going to look at UCLA tight end Caleb Wilson. Here, before we talk about him, here's what the general manager, Steve Keim, had to say about his tight end.
The last pick was Caleb Wilson, a guy that I believe led all of NCAA football as a tight end in receiving yards. Again, goes with the the number of guys that we've picked throughout this draft who are extremely productive on all levels. And, really liked his character, his intangibles, what he brings to the table on and off the field. His dad has been a longtime coach who I know well and have a high regard for. And to make him Mr. Irrelevant was a special thing for all of us.
Before we get into his stats and his background, that last part, Mr. Irrelevant, that is something that, I mean, you and I, we've discussed when you get into the 6th and 7th round, sometimes maybe it's better not to get drafted because then you can kind of pick and choose where you want to go, maybe where you have a better landing spot to try to make the roster. But for Wilson, this was something important for him. Every player wants to hear their name called, and Wilson was no different. In fact, he told reporters, quote, "I can't complain. I got my name called in the draft," unquote. Wilson, later on that same conference call, talked about being Mr. Irrelevant.
I just embraced it. All I needed was my name to get called and an opportunity. I mean, it's a lifelong dream as a kid to be picked in the NFL draft. So just to see my name pop up on the screen and see the happiness on my family's face, I mean, I just embraced it all. I mean, it's an honor, to be honest.
Now you just look at who Wilson is as a player, listed at 6'4", 240 pounds. He's a big target, excelled last season at UCLA, a first-team all-conference selection, 60 catches, 965 yards, both single-season marks for a tight end at UCLA, plus his 965 was the best among all tight ends in FBS. And, of course, he lit up ASU for a couple of touchdowns, 11 catches, and I believe it was 164 against the Sun Devils. So Cardinals, once again, going with a pass catcher. That's now 4 out of the 11. Of course, 3 tight ends, but this tight end, 3 wide receivers, and now this tight end. But certainly Wilson, someone that wanted to be drafted, was drafted, and now it's up to him to kind of open up some eyes and make now the roster.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the final pick in the draft. Of course you want to hear your name, and I like the fact that he's embracing it now. If you look at his background, he was a 3-star quarterback recruit coming out of high school. Okay, so he's obviously an athlete. Now, his father, as Steve pointed out, he was coaching at USC, and he went to USC. Unfortunately, his father got let go. And so at that point, he wasn't on scholarship. He was an employee of his father, or employee with his father, so there was no tuition. So then he ended up transferring to UCLA. And what I like about him is he's averaged 16.1 yards per catch. Now, I don't know if he's going to get this level, but he clearly was the best receiving tight end in this draft. Now, some others, you could look at the first-round Iowa guys. They may have more speed, but they're also asked to block a little bit pass-catching wise, and he was Josh Rosen's go-to guy a couple years ago. He did come out as a junior, so he forego his senior season, so you don't want to go to this undrafted route, but I'm glad he got picked. The thing is now with the addition of Max Williams, how many tight ends will they keep on the roster? Obviously, Charles Clay's a veteran guy, more known as a blocker. Ricky Seals-Jones, we talked about him getting better, more consistent. He's more of a pass-catching tight end body-wise. Max Williams can do a little bit of both. He brings a little bit of toughness to the team. And then you got Caleb Wilson. So worst-case scenario practice squad, but I think this is what the Cardinals want. They want competition, whether they keep 3 or 4. He is definitely in the mix for one of those final spots.
You got 7 total tight ends right now currently on the roster, and this is not counting the guys that might be added following this rookie minicamp. But according to Pro Football Focus, despite the fact that he was Mr. Irrelevant, number 254, Wilson, a steal of the 2019 draft, according to Pro Football Focus, they listed 31 total names. 4 Cardinals made the list: Byron Murphy, Andy Isabella, Lamont Gilliard, and Caleb Wilson. Here's what they had to say about Wilson. Quote, from a speed perspective, Wilson brings more of it than anyone not named Noah Fant in this draft class. He's also consistently produced at UCLA with grades over 90 each of the past 2 seasons. Wilson will never be much as a blocker and struggles with contact through his routes, but in Cliff Kingsbury's system, his speed will be a weapon, unquote.
Yeah, and they projected him, I want to say, maybe a late 5th, early 6th-round pick, and to get him at the last pick in the draft. Again, all those guys that you mentioned, 4 of the steals.
Correct.
They all had high grades when it came to Pro Football Focus, and so it kind of synced up to what the Cardinals were doing. But obviously, they had to stick to their board. I mean, we can talk about Cody Ford being an option with the 33rd overall pick, but we all know that they're going to play 3 corners this year, and Tremaine Brock does have experience. He's going to compete, but if you can get a guy like Byron Murphy in the 2nd round and plug and play him, and then you're going to have his rights for the next 5 years. So they stuck to their board, but they had plenty of options. But the fact is that they were getting guys they had higher grades on, and Murphy's a prime example. Isabella's a prime example. Hakeem Butler's a prime example. In this case, Wilson's a prime example where they had a higher grade, and for them, fortunately, they fell to him in each round.
Well, keep in mind, everyone's trying to figure out what Kingsbury wants to do offensively.
Right.
We know the tight end plays a major role in what Kingsbury did at Texas Tech. Charles Clay, one of the first offseason additions that this team made on the offensive side of the ball. And now you've got Wilson in here, potentially kind of be another in that mix. You're going to see the ball. Kyler Murray's going to look for that tight end because sometimes it might be the number 1 option. It could be the last option because the play is broken down.
Well, and I always think it's an easy throw. Now, we're talking about a 5'10" quarterback, but again, he only had 5 batted balls down. You got to find little slivers and try to find holes, but I think it's an easy throw for a quarterback. And you're talking about Clay, who's 6'5", 6'6". Is he that tall? Maybe 6'.
Charles Clay?
Charles May is a little bit shorter.
He's 6'4".
Okay, but that's a nice throw for him, and obviously the wingspan and the catch radius. Ricky Seals-Jones very similar. But if you notice on film when we were showing some video highlights of him, it looks like they line him up outside and they get the ball to him pretty quick, and he's able to kind of come across the field. So if he's got a 250-pound linebacker on him, he should be able to win that crossing match yards after catch. Now, obviously, he's not going to outrun a defensive back, but you're going to see him get chunk yards or at least yards after catch when he catches it initially, and that means getting rid of the ball probably less than 2.5 seconds.
After Wilson heard his name called, he was asked about being a factor in that Kingsbury offense, and yeah, he's looking forward to it.
I'm excited about it. They throw the ball around a lot, and that's probably what is my strong suit right now is catching the ball and stretching the field and stuff, and that's what they do. So, I mean, I'm excited to see how I mesh in with the system and how I can help contribute to the team.
And we'll see Wilson coming up on Friday. He may be already a connection with Kyler Murray. We'll see how much Murray looks at his 3 wide receivers and his tight end coming up this weekend. As we continue here on Cardinals Cover 2 from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, as we broadcast in our Bose QC35s, go to Bose.com for more information. As we continue here, before we hear from the Bird Gang, a reminder that coming up this Thursday, the latest episode of Cardinals Flight Plan debuts. It's titled On the Clock, and here's a preview.
This day can define the next decade for this franchise.
It felt like it all fell in place throughout the draft, and really pleased with how it turned out for us.
Byron,
Isabella.
Zach.
Hakeem.
Deontay.
Keyshawn.
Lamont.
Joshua.
Michael, how you doing?
Caleb.
You got a deal, brother?
You ready?
Let's do it.
Let's call Kyler.
Kyler. Okay, where are we at? We're 2 picks away.
As you always know, it's not about where you start.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Congrats. And I don't know that I've heard a player more emotional. This is what it's all about.
With the first pick
The talk is over. Now they got to deal with you.
in the 2019 NFL Draft,
It's time, man.
the Arizona Cardinals select Kyler Murray.
Again, Thursday at 6 o'clock on Facebook Watch and YouTube, and you can catch up on past episodes by going to azcardinals.com/flight plan.
Now, I know it didn't become official until Roger Goodell announced the pick, but when Michael said, let's call Kyler,
It's done.
that was done.
Yeah. Love the inside access Cardinals flight plan provides. And, of course, the next one coming up on Thursday. All right, let's not waste any more time. Time for the Bird Gang to sound off. Here are your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2, using the number 2 to get involved in the show. And we'll start with Instagram and start with a question that we kind of already answered, but in case you missed it, this user wants to know, how will Caleb Wilson fit into the offense? Specifically, what are his strengths?
Well, one thing we didn't talk about him is he can play on special teams, and that's going to help him because when you're not a starter. But he clearly is a pass-catching tight end. I like to see the Cardinals get him out in space, see if he can get yards after catch. You're not going to see him when they go to 11 personnel because you normally have 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 back, and usually that tight end could be a blocker. He could release on a route. So he's got his work cut out, but competition's a good thing. I like the way he speaks. Sounds intelligent. Obviously, his father was a coach, played in the National Football League, so he's been around the game. But I think he's got a bright future. It's just a matter of a numbers game at that position.
Spent some time with the Cardinals as well in 1997, talking about Caleb's father, Chris. All right, away from the draft, a couple of questions on Instagram. User wants to know, will there be a battle for the kicker slot, perhaps some competition for Zane Gonzalez? Cole Murphy, by the way, who was on the roster, was released late last week. So right now, as far as kicker, Gonzalez is the only one.
Yeah, you never know. Obviously, I think they want to bring another punter in to give Andy Lee a little bit of a break. You don't want those guys have a tired leg just in OTAs. They use the jugs machine on some of the special team stuff. To me, it's Gonzalez's job to lose. I think they look at a young kicker who's got a strong leg. He's got to be consistent. I think the injuries are behind him. He had some pressure kicks late in the year last year. You never know. They're paid to make kicks, and I think they're excited about him. But if this team is in some pressure games this year, close games, he's going to have to make the kicks. But I think right now it's his job to lose.
Staying with Instagram, last question. This one concerning Hassan Reddick, and how do you think he'll benefit from the 3-4 scheme?
Well, I feel for him because, and again, the staff is going to play to their strengths. I think he's going to be fine. I think Jordan Hicks will be a sounding board for him. Hicks is going to wear the sticker on his helmet, so he'll be calling the defense. He'll get guys lined up. I think Hassan has improved in covering guys in the flat and the screen pass. I think he's become a better open field tackler. And, hey, listen, I know they got other pass rushers. He's a guy that can rush the passer. Of course, he played with his hand in the dirt at Temple. The Cardinals moved him when they switched defenses to a 3-4. Now they're going back to a 4-3 and a 3-4. So I think he's probably the guy that we're not talking about. But he was the 13th overall pick in the draft, and they are expecting things from him. But I think having Jordan Hicks is going to be really good for Hassan Reddick moving forward.
What else would be good? To stay in one position
yes,
with one defensive coordinator for back-to-back seasons.
And hopefully that's the case because he is under contract, and we know the team is not going to go back to a 4-3 just based on the personnel.
Let's move to Twitter. User wants to know, as we play the prediction game here, MJ, which do you think is more likely to happen this season? One of the Cardinals' rookie receivers has 800-plus yards receiving. Kyler Murray has 600-plus rushing yards. Or Byron Murphy, 5 or more interceptions.
I'll go rushing yards, Murray.
For Kyler Murray?
Yeah. I don't see a rookie wide receiver getting 800 yards.
And 5 interceptions for Murphy might be a little bit. Although I'll say this, when you have Peterson on one side, Alford on the other, if you're a quarterback, who are you looking at? I'm going to target that rookie. You might have a lot of chances, but that's certainly 5. That's team leader last year was 4.
Well, if he gets 5, he's going to the Pro Bowl. He's probably going to be up for All-Pro. I love the pick. I think he's going to fit right in based on his size and speed. I would be happy just with a couple interceptions as a rookie.
Last question here from Twitter, and this one we might have to do some digging, but user wants to know call them practice gadgets, i.e. virtual reality for the quarterbacks. Is that something the Cardinals are still doing? Because that was something that Bruce Arians installed here, was the virtual reality. Josh Rosen wasn't a big fan of it, so it was interesting to see what this new crop of quarterbacks, or if Cliff Kingsbury utilizes it, because Carson Palmer loved it.
Yeah, they swore by it, and Carson used to study it, and I think it really extended his career because he was able to see some stuff that maybe he didn't see on film. I went up to Rosen last year. He said he wasn't a big fan of it. I don't know about the new staff. I know they went out and purchased the equipment, so it's available. But everyone's different. Maybe they don't need it. But I'll try to find out. But I talked to Josh last year, and he didn't think it would help him in any way.
It might be something that you don't know until training camp, because that's when they brought the camera out and everything, and it allowed them at the end of the day to kind of review practice. So we'll just have to kind of wait and
again,
see.
I think Carson felt like it gave him an edge. Josh feels like maybe watching film and talking to defensive players gave him an edge when it came to coverage. I get it. But to me, the more the merrier. If you can try to find out what's behind you and stuff you don't see just based on your progressions, if it can help you, more for it. But this offense is going to be predicated on getting rid of the football, so you're not going to have time to overthink things or try to go through all 4 progressions. It's see a guy open, throw the ball.
And everyone learns differently, different methods. So if it's not being used, it's not, don't read anything into that. It's just maybe Murray, Hundley, Knopf prefer just watching the film, getting into the playbook.
And again, I think when I say extended his career, Carson obviously took a lot of hits, but maybe he was thinking, I got to climb the pocket more because I'm feeling somebody behind me. I could see it out of the side of my eye. On the film, on the virtual reality, you actually can see it. Obviously, they don't get touched in practice. So again, it works for different guys. I think for Carson, it was kind of a new toy for him to use, and he obviously made the most of it, because when he was healthy and they were able to protect him, there wasn't a lot of guys that threw a great deep ball like Carson Palmer.
Appreciate everyone reaching out your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2. We'll do it again on Wednesday, and of course we'll be back to our regular scheduled time of 3 o'clock on Friday. But looking at the time, we've got a staff meeting we got to get to. So on that note, special thanks to everyone behind the scenes helping us do what we do here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tim Delaney, Jim Alejandro, Devin Henry, Jackson Sipes. For my partner Mike Jurecki, I'm Craig Grialou. Enjoy your Monday. We'll talk to you on Wednesday here on Cardinals Cover 2.